500,000 TikTok followers. You better believe today's Real Finfluencer guest is happy that TikTok is still alive and thriving. Wait. Before we dive into the conversation with today's guest, welcome to the Real Finfluencers, a podcast born from our original video series spotlighting financial professionals who are using video to grow their business and their influence. Here's something you should know. Most of these guests aren't Idea Decanter clients. They've built their digital presence from the ground up, and they're here to share exactly how they did it. I'm your host, Laura Garfield, co-founder of Idea Decanter, and my goal is simple: help you discover strategies you can actually use, steal what works, get inspired, and find your own unique brand of finfluence. Now let's get into it. I am thrilled to welcome Eric McDermott. I have been looking forward to this interview ever since I had a first conversation with Eric, who happens to be Best Business Influencer of the Year, a 3-time best-selling author, and, by the way, managing equity partner at Pacific Advisors. Eric, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Laura. It's great to join you, and I've been looking forward to the conversation as well.
So we're going to dig into what you have done on TikTok first, but with a bit of a disclaimer, right?
Yeah, sure. So just understand when we're talking about my financial services world, in my financial services firm, we have a great organization there, and I've got a great team. For compliance reasons, it's really important that I make sure, though, that in financial services, that's my day job, right? And then this other stuff we're talking about, where you're hearing about my social media stuff and some of the creative outlets, that's a separate and outside business that I've created, not related to financial services. So certainly the lessons I learn facilitate, things on both sides, but they're very different entities. And I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Well, I don't know why you'd have to draw a bright line between you as an advisor and dad raps.
Right? Yeah, isn't that funny? Yeah, talk about an unwitting dad rapper. Yes, I certainly stumbled into it, and it turns out it was well received. So,
if you are on TikTok, you need to check out Nexpectations and do go to this pinned folder of Eric's dad raps. I went down the rabbit hole and I watched every single one of them, and I can't tell you which one I love the most. They're good.
That's fun. Thanks for sharing.
What piece of learning can you extrapolate from this several-year experiment you've had on TikTok that applies to financial advisors who are operating on other social media platforms?
Yeah, I think that the biggest challenge we face in the profession of financial services, of course, we have certain regulatory requirements, compliance requirements around communication, but even all that aside, because of those things, we tend to be slow movers as a profession, as an industry, compared to enterprise at large when it comes to social media, how to reach people, meet them where they're at. And so one of the things that I had to learn going through this process that isn't always clear to folks is that marketing has changed a lot in the last number of years. So we have now 4 generations in the workplace. Okay, so we've got the baby boomers, we've got Gen X, we've got millennials, we got Gen Z. Okay, they're all active in the workplace, right? In a few years, we'll have Gen Alpha joining that. So why I'm mentioning it, though, is that where people are looking, where their eyeballs are at, what they're interested in, what they're expecting to receive, has shifted a lot between our generations. So if we are baby boomers or Gen Xers or even elder millennials, and we are raised with a background of, say, professionally developed commercials as the way and advertising as the way to reach people, those may still reach some of the older generation folks and be reasonably well received. But you start reaching into that younger generation, they don't want your commercials, they want content. They don't want your full-length feature documentary on how great you are. They want something short and to the point that shows how you can help make them great. And those are very different changes. And I had to learn, like I said, I've got a little bit of scar tissue to prove how to do it wrong on my way to figuring out how to do it better, because I was doing what was I remember coming into the profession, even just 15 years ago, webinars were an hour long or an hour and a half long. Now, if you make those things, even more than 20 minutes, you're going to lose everybody. Well, content and video is kind of the same way. At this point, if you create, even YouTube length videos, you have to do something first to get people interested in them before they'll invest 10, 15, 20 minutes for longer form content. And so when I moved to platforms like TikTok, not for financial service stuff, but for this outside business efforts in my other knowledge around marketing career and such like that, I had to figure out how to say a lot in under a minute. Because if you go more than like 30 to 60 seconds, 90 seconds at most, right? No one's going to stay with you. And you're in a world now where content is served up at such an abundance that you got about 1 to 3 seconds to grip somebody enough to stick with you for even that 30 to 60 seconds. So I've just learned a lot that what has changed in marketing and how we've got to reach people has shifted. And so that's some of what I think I bring to that.
Yeah, you've got to have that hook to draw them in. And probably TikTok, more than any other platform, that hook is crucial. But it's the same on LinkedIn, it's the same on Instagram and over on YouTube. Eric talked to me before this interview about the idea of a teaser, a trailer, and a movie. And through this content creation process, you've discovered that there are places for all of those. So TikTok for you has been more of the teaser, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the only reason I use that metaphor, relating it to movies, is that we have to recognize that nobody wants to invest in that longest form of a movie until they've seen the trailer, but that now we're in attention spans that are 1 minute in length. And so if you don't have a teaser, no one's even going to watch a trailer these days. Trailers are 3 to 5 minutes, right? So the idea when creating content is, even though we have a lot to say, I think it's Mark Twain that's credited for saying, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one instead, right? The real discipline is actually figuring out how to say as much as possible in this little time. And I don't just mean talk really fast. I mean, consolidate the point, and so when I think teaser in marketing and I'm creating video content, right, I'm thinking in terms of what's the least amount I need to say to bait the hook, not feed the fish. And if I can't capture somebody in 30 seconds, right, they're not going to come in for 3 to 5 minutes. And if they're not going to come in for 3 to 5 minutes, they're not going to want to engage in, say, a webinar or invest the time to be in a conversation with me for a half hour to explore the opportunity to work together.
When it comes to a good place to share the mid-length or longer format content, the trailers or the movies in your speak, YouTube is the platform that we drive most advisors to. Would you agree that this is a better place for longer format content than other platforms, or do you disagree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, completely. YouTube owns the market of longer form content. And they've since put out shorts, so they're trying to, be in that short form world as well. So they've got the teasers and the trailers, and they were frankly one of the first folks to move away from full length productions and to do whatever length you want. And I think that we started seeing what I imagine is more of a typical length of, we'll call it long format, is thought to be more like 10 to 20 minutes, 10 to 30 minutes, something like that. No, YouTube owns that marketplace for sure. And as long as you are compliance approved, to be able to post on the YouTube marketplace, that's a great place for that mid form and longer form content for sure. Now, how to get people again to invest in that kind of time when they're distracted by an algorithm, right? And there's the other thing that we have to remember is that the algorithm probably isn't going to drive folks like me to the top of the list. They're going to find 16 other things that might keep your eyeballs longer on their platform than I will. So then we have to have some additional strategy, not just video content.
So let's get into strategy, because there is sometimes a field of dreams approach. If you record it, they will watch it. And that's not the case, is it?
No, at least that's not my experience. If somebody figures out how to do that, that isn't a celebrity or isn't trending already, let me know how you did it. Look, if we're in the financial services profession, and if you look, I'm a balding Gen X dad, right? So I'm as trendy as a librarian. And the reality is that these are algorithmically driven platforms. And there's very little I'm going to naturally offer up that's going to go viral. Like you think, oh, if I just put it out there, people are going to read it. It's like, no, I've tried. Look, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, whether it's in the financial services realm where we're approved to use it, or in my other business where I don't do financial stuff, I've worked with all those platforms. And the one thing I can tell you is ubiquitously true is no matter how good I get, nobody just automatically comes in droves to watch my stuff. I have to have a strategy to back it. I have to have some way of getting people to that content. And I have to have a strategy for what to do to follow up that content with more.
So you are taking all of these learnings, the things we've been talking about today, and you will be applying them to the marketing strategies with the 150 advisors within your organization. What does the future look like? If we were having a conversation a year from now, what kind of ROI or successes would you hope that the advisors will take from what you can share?
It's and again, we're all on a different spectrum of compliance rigor here. So some of us can use certain platforms and not others. Some of us have a little more freedom to use them. The thing I'd caution against is that there will be some breakthroughs. I've seen a few of them where they get hundreds of thousands of followers just by putting out content, and things like that. Though overwhelmingly, what I'm seeing and what I share with our 150 plus agents, advisors, and specialists at our firm is you have to create the content at this point in order just to stay relevant. Now, if you are within 10 years of retiring and everybody you serve is also your generation, then maybe you'll squeak through. But if you in any way need to reach the younger two generations and you're not creating content that meets people where they're at, and when I say meets people where they're at, I don't just mean if you were raised like I was, as a Gen Xer or a boomer, and everything you saw was a commercial professionally produced to try to solicit somebody. Nobody wants them anymore. They have too much access to fun and interesting or informative content. So if it's education, entertainment, edutainment, whatever that is, as long as you get whatever your compliance approval requirements are for that content, putting it out there alone won't be enough. So what I'm explaining to our folks is, one, you need to make sure the content is done correctly. Okay. Two, you need to post in places where people could look, but don't expect them to look without having some strategy. And then three, make sure you're ready to invest a little in that strategy. So the investment, of course, the time and energy of creating the content, investing in folks to help produce it or edit it, like y'all do, right? And so things along those lines is getting that content ready, but then also investing in recognizing how you're going to get people to it and what's your follow through with it, right? And so, even as a defensive mechanism, almost nobody is going to sit down with a financial professional in this day and age not having validated you somewhere online. And, web pages are starting to fall down by the wayside as well, because again, they're not content as much as they're commercials, right? They're more brochures turned online in our profession, as opposed to engaging people in what it is they can look forward to and expect. Where I look to see video content work best when I'm thinking of our advisors is, let's say you use a compliance approved web platform, right? And you just start putting out there different stages you plan to take a client through if they go on a journey with you and what they could look forward to. Well, whether you do that in marketing or you assist the actual sales process, say, hey, before we meet for our first meeting, I've created a little video for you. Now I'm moving into more of that trailer movie style content, right? But if you've already got them engaging you as a client, you can create video content that gives them a sense of what to expect when they come into the meeting. So they're not caught off guard. So you don't have to spend a bunch of time explaining things. They're just ready to go. They came with what they needed to know. They're ready with the objectives they've got to get to, and they're going to work with you and collaborate with you.
And that conversation be much deeper and more meaningful, right?
That's right. Well, the time you really do get together, you spend time progressing the conversation rather than back explaining what you're about to do. Right. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity there and building that credibility over time. Now, having said that, the successes I've had in social media, just full disclosure, because nobody's just going to come, that I have in my other business, more than 500,000 followers on TikTok, is not a result of how awesome I am. The content is good enough. to be worthy of the followers and the interaction. But here's the deal. The algorithm was never going to promote me. The algorithm was never going to do, to make me go viral. So I set aside a budget to boost views, right? And even though I can boost views, that doesn't mean I'm going to get liked. It doesn't mean I'm going to get followed. It doesn't mean any of that. I have to earn those things. So the content has to hold up. But you can actually boost views on some of these platforms. So you set aside a budget and say, hey, I'm going to spend a few dollars and I'd like to get 1,000 to 10,000 views in a certain geography or a certain market, right? You can do that. And now that content will go out. But just understand, just because you got the boosting of views, it's just going to help people discover bad content faster if it's not good content. Right. So the part that I had to be worried about is I boosted the views and one of two things was going to happen. I was either going to find out my content went out and nobody liked it, wah, wah, or I'd actually start seeing people go, hey, this is worth and, liking and commenting on and engaging and sharing and following. And it was, so that worked out. But it's that other part that no matter how good we get, people stop just short of like naturally coming in droves. Like at least it's never happened that way for me.
Thank you so much for sharing these nuggets of hard-earned knowledge about video marketing with the advisors who are watching. I like to wrap up by saying, if Eric can do it, you can do it too. But I want one more disclaimer in this video to say Eric is exceptionally creative, has a home studio to record his videos, and also is a very talented artist, as you will see in a lot of his sketch work within his videos. So if Eric can train his advisors to do it, you can do it too. And we can all aspire to be a little more like what Eric has accomplished online.
Okay, Laura, I've got to jump in here one more time. In all fairness, if y'all are listening to this, I have over 20 years of enterprise marketing background. I did not grow up in this profession. I entered it later in my career, middle of my career. And so I brought a lot of that marketing background. If you don't have that, that's not to discourage you. What it means is you just need to configure and team up with people who do have that background because you have the knowledge. It's in you. And with the right help and support, you can absolutely create this because I'm not actually special. I just happen to know how to do that stuff. But if you didn't know, there's plenty of people who do, like folks like Laura right here, like that can configure with you and help you. So if you don't have it in you already, configure for the help because that's how we do things.
Well, if you're looking to build authority and grow your practice with video, but you do need a little help, that's what we do at Decanter. Oh, one more thing. If you're not already part of Idea Decanter's Real Finfluencer community, now's your chance to join us. Head to ideadecanter.com/join, and you'll be in. You'll get early access to advisor video tips, invites to exclusive events, and behind-the-scenes insights that you won't find on Google or even on ChatGPT. Whether you're just video curious or already knee-deep in content creation, this is the place to grow your influence with video. Don't miss out. And thanks so much for listening to The Real Finfluencers.